Hello, welcome. Thank you very, very much, Liz, for joining me today. Could you just start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and your work as a holistic sleep coach?
Yeah, hi, I am Liz. I am a midwife for 20 years, also a lactation consultant towards the latter part of my midwifery career, and mum of three, and now a holistic sleep coach as well, thanks to the sleep coaching course. So, yeah, just a bit of background for me. I stepped out of the NHS and into a career in private practice as a lactation consultant in October 2021. And shortly after I'd stepped into private practice, saw an advert for the holistic sleep revolution. And it just sung to my heartstrings, really, because personally, and I think this is why a lot of people end up coming into this line of work, is sort of own experiences in those early parenting years. And the two things that had been the biggest challenge for me were probably the feeding and the sleep. And it does seem to be, obviously, in my line of work, I see that reflected in many, many new families as well. So it excited me to kind of hear and learn more. And then, having been part of the sleep revolution, that just felt like the tip of the iceberg, and I needed more. So I just wanted to dive in and learn as much as I possibly could. So yeah, just kind of reached out and said, yeah, take me on, let me join your team, and I want to learn everything there is, because I could just see how it would be so complementary to what I was already doing, really.
Yeah, yeah. And so thinking back, when you were a midwife, obviously you've been working with families for a very long time. How often did that conversation around sleep and feeding and how they kind of fit together, how
Yeah.
often did that come up?
A lot. I would say probably the vast majority of families. Obviously, in the very early days, which is when I was seeing them more as the midwife, they were probably more focused on the feeding side of things and just coping with that newborn sleep. But what I learned when I then stepped into private practice as a lactation consultant was that I was then seeing families for longer and seeing the longer term impact of, once you got through those sort of newborn stages, how things were. And my experience is majority of families were wanting sort of to avoid the non-responsive approaches to managing their baby's sleep. But there's so much noise out there, and you can see that confusion and just not knowing where to turn, who to trust. And so again, just coming back to, for me, the reason the course made sense was that if I'd met them as a lactation consultant, I'd already built that rapport and that trust with them. And so they would then know, okay, we know how Liz works, we know what she thinks about these things, and that's our kind of vibe, that's what we align with as parents, and could then reach back out to me for ongoing support. And the job satisfaction for me is fantastic, because I love that sort of continuity of care and getting to see them. Sometimes, it can be nearer to a year, and I've seen them in the very early days of breastfeeding, and then they reach out around a year, and that's just lovely to see how much has changed in that time and how their little person has really grown and flourished, and
Yeah.
they have flourished as parents as well.
That's so lovely, because actually you wouldn't necessarily have that follow-up with them, would
Not
you,
at
as
all.
an IBCLC? If everything's going well, actually,
Yeah.
hopefully you only see them once or twice, don't you?
That, yeah. So it just meant there was that chance for me to kind of carry on being a go-to person for them in their early parenting journey, really.
Yeah. So why was it that you wanted to add sleep coaching to your business? You obviously already had an established business as an IBCLC. What was it about sleep that hooked you so much that you wanted to kind of add that?
It was largely that variety, that it's just nice to have different things to offer. But also, like I say, because those had been the two areas of biggest challenge, and also knowing that there could be that overlap, that sometimes a feeding problem can impact a sleep problem, and vice versa sometimes as well. So it was just nice to kind of think, this all makes sense. It all kind of brings everything together, and it gives me more to offer to the families I meet. So for me, it was more sort of on a smaller scale thing of kind of not to take over and stop doing any of the lactation support, but very much to complement what I was already doing, and kind of more in my sort of local area.
Mm.
But something I kind of see the course as is, it's like the pebble dropping in the pond, And then the ripples that are coming out are all of us working as sleep coaches once we're graduates. And some of us are working in sort of those tighter circles just in our local area, but watching some of the other graduates, I can see they're kind of the wider circles and working sometimes on like in an international scale. And so that's what's been so fabulous about the course is we've all had the same training and learning, but then we can kind of pick up and make it work in our lifestyles and our businesses how we see fit, really.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because some people do want to go global.
Yeah.
They want to be hugely successful. They want to grow a really, really impactful business, not just supporting people, but also having a meaningful income as well. But some people really do just want to be able to add like a complementary service to something that's already going well. They don't want to scale in that gigantic way. They just want something that works for them and for their clients and for their family. So it's lovely that you've been able to find the work-life balance that kind of works for you. Was there a specific moment when you felt like, oh, this is really working well, like I've got things to that sweet spot where it is just where I want it to be?
It probably is more recent, I would say, probably in the last few months. And I think some of that is that having worked in the field that I'd worked in for so long, I'd kind of felt like my confidence was there. I'd reached that sort of expert level, not saying that you ever know everything, because you never do, but had certainly got that huge knowledge base with the lactation support. And then this was something that was totally new. There were some experiences from my own parenting, but a whole lot of the information in the course that was totally new to me, had never been part of my midwifery training either. And so then there's that novice element of, oh, okay, this is a bit scary, and stepping out of your comfort zone and starting to do the consultations. And it's, at the end of the day, it's only through practice, isn't it, that we start to get that experience and that the feeling of, yeah, okay, I do think I know things now. But a large thing that has been so helpful with that is the ongoing coaching as well, and the access to sort of the Facebook groups that we can share ideas, ask other people's opinions and thoughts, so we can tap into your knowledge, but we can also tap into each other's. And through that, I have made connections with some on the other side of the world, which is fantastic as well. And we occasionally check in with each other. How's everything going? And that's lovely. So that collaboration that comes, also connected with someone more locally that I hadn't even known was just a little way down the road and was basically doing much the same as me, a lactation consultant, and had added the sleep as sort of a complementary thing as well. So there's that sort of, not to sound cheesy, but it is a bit of a family feel to it, really, that you kind of go, yeah, we're all on the same page. We're all wanting the same things for new families out there. We might all be working differently, but we're bringing the same sort of things and trying to sort of push through and help people realise that there are gentle and alternative approaches, and it doesn't have to be a non-responsive approach and very attachment focused, keeping that lovely bond that families work so hard to build in those early months, and really making sure that that stays the focus throughout as well.
Yeah. And so thinking about the journey that you've been on, because obviously you had your career in midwifery for a couple of decades, and then you made that brave step into private practice as an IBCLC. How did the program help to kind of grow and build your business, sort of beyond that which you already had?
Yeah, so massively. I was actually very new into the private practice, so a lot of sort of the business side of things was very new to me. But I had done a lot of the reading and research on my own and hadn't really known where to turn. So then coming into the course and seeing that the marketing side of things and all of Emma's knowledge was there as well, that was a huge, huge help for me, because some of it was reassurance of, oh, okay, I've done those bits, good. And other bits were like, oh, I didn't realise that was even a thing. And so that also hugely helps. And basically the course is so set up for you go work your way through it, and by the end of it, not only do you have the knowledge around the practical stuff, but you also know how to completely start from scratch. You could come into it with no kind of background like I have whatsoever, and you could still get all completely set up and running with everything, be ready to go out there and get going as a sleep consultant, basically. So
Amazing.
yeah, it was all of that was really did make a difference. And then in terms of the actual course itself, the variety within the course in terms of even just how accessible to different learning styles. So it really helped me that some of it was things that you could sit and read. So if you're in that kind of mind frame on that day, then you could do some reading. Other times you could have that you just click off, get the audio going so you can listen to it. So I would do that on a few occasions, multitasking, doing stuff, and just let someone talk at me, which was great. You've also got all the amazing experts that you've collaborated with as well for all the different areas. So like reflux and things like that. You had Shell Banks, and then I think Tracy Castles, and all these, Amy Brown, wonderful big names that really have got amazing minds and amazing knowledge to share. And that was fantastic as well, to have those little lectures that we could dip into with those and covering various aspects and topics too. So it just feels like the whole course is just perfectly tailored to all the information and knowledge that you could possibly need, practical plus the business side of things.
Yeah, amazing. And beyond the business then, thinking about your personal life, how has it impacted either your work-life balance? If you think back to perhaps 5 years ago, what's different now compared to then?
Everything really, that having sort of done shift work and kind of very much that sort of rule in your life of you can't make plans in so many months' time because you don't know what shift you're going to work, that sort of thing. So that working for myself is just worth its weight in gold, because I am there, able to be there for my family when they need. My children are now getting older, so eldest is now a teenager, but they have different needs. So they don't need you in the terms of cuddles and connection so much, but they need in other and also equally intense ways. So for me to be able to be there when needed and to be able to juggle work around life rather than life around work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
So
Totally.
the choice of, if I want to work evenings, I can. If I want to work a weekend, I can. But if I don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so relatable, juggling work around teenagers who suddenly decide at 9:30 or 10 o'clock that that's the time they need to open up and tell
Oh
you
yeah.
this big story. And it's
Everything that's worrying.
exactly, yeah, it's lovely to be able to just go, okay, this can wait. Yeah,
And for
amazing.
my eldest, it's a big school year ahead with exams. So to know that I'm going to be able to be there for him around all of that, and make sure he's had a good meal, make sure he has a hug before he goes off to school in the morning on the exam days, that sort of thing. I know that's going to be worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, you can't put a price on it, can you? How did it help you to support families in a different or a more expanded way?
So yeah, I think that with, I suppose, the lactation support and even the midwifery before that, it was very much there and then and people reaching out. But sometimes with the sleep support, they don't know what they need until they're in the depths of it. And so the course laying out things like setting up doing discovery calls and things like that is fantastic, because families, when they're most at their most vulnerable, do want to be able to have that chance of get a feel for someone. Is this the right fit for me? So that was really helpful. And then I guess just that variety within the course as well, very different to anything that I've ever had before. The self-paced nature was absolutely imperative for me, because busy work life plus juggling children, I could dip in and out and do it at my sort of pace. But even the assignment side of it, I think people sometimes see a course and think, oh gosh, there's an assignment, I don't think I want to dive into that. But actually, I think that the assignment is really valuable for helping consolidate everything, because part of that assignment is that practical element of have a case study, work with someone, now kind of work through these questions and see how you've used what you've learned to help that family. And for my sort of learning style, that's really helpful. I learn through doing rather than just being told stuff.
Yeah.
And so the assignment just really helped me to kind of take everything I'd learned, use it with the family, and then kind of pick it to pieces a little bit and go, right, okay, what did I do there and how did that work and why, and what have I learned from that for moving on, sort of thing.
Yeah. And sort of thinking about, how your business works for you, are you able to see different or more clients? You talked about having that lovely sense of continuity of care and seeing clients who you'd perhaps met, on day 4, and you then connect with them at a year. But do you find that you are able to see more clients, perhaps those who weren't lactation clients? And how did that feel?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of what I suppose in my initial vision was it would just be the people that I'd seen for feeding support, and I didn't really factor for they would then tell their friends and their friends and their friends. So that has been really beneficial. And the beauty of the sleep support as opposed to the feeding, majority of people do prefer the face-to-face. So obviously I've got to factor in the travel side of that, whereas sleeping, it is perfectly easy to do virtually, which means there's no geographical boundaries whatsoever. So it can be someone in the other side of the world and you can still do that sleep support as long as you can time up your timings right. So that's a lovely part of it, because that does sort of take out that time zap of travel, which obviously you can do feeding support virtually, but I find the majority that I'm sort of serving do prefer the face-to-face for that. So yeah, it's nice to have that variety as well, that there's different ways of working. I also had one session with it was a group of mums that had said they were all feeling a bit wobbly. The babies were under 3 months old, and they said, would you come and just have like a group chat with us all? And that was really fantastic, because that's not something I've ever done with feeding before. But sleep further down the line probably needs to be that more one-to-one, but because they were all so young, it was that newborn and how to cope with a newborn and then what to expect coming up. And what was lovely to see, that in that room of 6 mummies and babies, all those babies, although they were probably within 1 to 2 weeks of age, were doing totally different things. And I think that massively helped every single one of those mums to go, there's not something I'm doing wrong, my baby's not broken, they're just all different, and it's hard, but normal is hard. But
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
so
And
that was something I probably will try and do a bit more of as well, because I could see the benefits of that for mums with babies sort of under that 3 to 4 month age, where they're on the younger sort of side.
yeah, I think that's one of the lovely things about sleep support. There are so many different ways that we can support families. And I think group sessions like that are lovely because you get to bring in that peer support for them as well, which is really lovely. Is there a particular type of case, for want of a better word, that you really enjoy? Like what would be your favorite type of client to work with sleep?
Probably the ones around about a year. I find the ones under a year, which I do often get a lot, around 6 to 8 months. And 6 to 8 months is just a bit of a wonky time, all told, for all sorts, not just sleep, isn't it? So once they kind of get to a year, you feel like there's a little bit more sort of tweaking and fine tuning that you can do. And when they're napping slightly less as well, that kind of makes things a bit easier. So, but ultimately, just a family that kind of are on the same page and aligned with that sort of holistic and gentle approach, not looking for the quick fix of I need my baby sleeping through by X many days or nights or whatever. And again, the course kind of geared us up to make sure that within our websites and our marketing and messaging, that very much that's who we're advertising to as well. So as of yet, I haven't had anybody that hasn't been what they've sort of come to me for. So that's lovely as well.
Yeah, it really is. It's lovely when you don't have to persuade people. They just come and find you because they're like, oh, what a relief. Somebody who gets it and isn't going to make me do X, Y, Z. So have you got a kind of positive outcome, a success story that you don't mind sharing with us?
Yeah, so probably a more recent one, and this was just like a troubleshooting phone call, and it was a couple that I hadn't met before, hadn't supported before. I think a friend had recommended me. and they just wanted a bit of sort of a overview of everything. And so we had the hour-long phone call, had the chat, and then they gave some feedback probably a few weeks later just to say what a difference it had made for them, and that they had actually spoken to some other sleep consultants, and that I was the first one who had looked at the whole picture and looked at their baby as a person and the individual sort of character traits that their baby had and how that might be impacting and things like that. So that was just, it felt like a win for the holistic sleep coaching, really, of yes, this is exactly what it's all about. It's never kind of seeing the sleep as a problem to be fixed. It's kind of going, let's look at everything and work out how we can kind of gently support baby in the right direction with this area of development, and just giving parents that feeling of, when sleep's all over the place, it's not because you've parented in the wrong way. It's just that's how it sometimes goes. But equally, it's not that you just have to put up with it either, that there are sort of things that we can do to kind of nurture things in the right direction.
Yeah. Where do you think these families would go? So, you know, hypothetically, if you hadn't joined the program, what would be your concern for your clients, the people that you have spent time with and you've supported them in their feeding journeys, or their friends are reaching out to them and saying, oh, I'm struggling with sleep, do you know anybody? Where do you think they would have gone if not for you?
This was part of why I did, because I normally kind of deliberate that decisions a bit longer before just jumping in. But I think it's the biggest reason why, once I'd done the sleep revolution, I just went, this is what I need to do. This is what I need in my business to help the families that I'm seeing, because I'd already started seeing through the lactation support that I'd been doing, people reaching out to non-responsive sleep trainers, and then they were coming back to me because their milk supply had tanked, or the baby was unsettled and refusing the breast in the daytime because they'd changed things at nighttime. And it broke my heart. I just like, this isn't how it needed to be, and this has added that layer of anxiety and really pulled the rug from under them and knocked their confidence, which none of us need in that, you know, it's a wobbly enough time anyway in those early years of parenting. None of us need that as well. So yeah, so having already started to see that, I was like, I can either just go, oh, this is really painful to see, and then try and direct them to like your books and things like that, or I can go, I can do all this learning, I can become the voice of reason, I can become the person that they can turn to and trust, so that they're not finding the misinformation, because there's a lot of noise out there around sleep. And
Yeah, I guess, you know, if not you, then who are they going to ask? You know, that people are going to sometimes struggle with sleep, and with the best will in the world, they're going to look for support somewhere, aren't they? And if you can be that person, yeah, not only is it good for your business, but it's good for them, and it's good for you, because you get to see the happy ending, don't you?
Yeah, that feel-good factor of seeing the things that you kind of put in place and the difference that it can make, and that the parents' confidence never had to take that knock at all. They were just like, right, okay, this is something that people struggle with. It's okay to need that hand holding. You've got some techniques and ideas that we can try. Let's see how this goes. And progress does happen.
Yeah. How would you say sleep coaching is different from being a lactation consultant? I'm curious, because of course I've got the same background. So, you know, for you, what is the difference?
So the lactation consultancy, I would say the feeding support side of things tend to see the results that little bit quicker. Not always, because some cases are really complex and that they do take time, but the majority of the time it's sort of a bit of a tweak to the positioning, a bit of a try a different position, that sort of thing, and that can, you know, millimeters of difference can make mountains, can't it, when it comes to feeding. So that can often feel more sort of instant results, and within a week or two they're going, oh, this is great, and thank goodness, and we're happily feeding and everything's going well. Whereas the sleep support, and especially taking this sort of holistic and gentle approach, is more of the long game, and it does take that little bit longer. Not all babies, some do kind of adjust to changes quite quickly. But for the majority, I would say you're looking at 3-4 weeks before you really start to see the changes that the parents might have chosen to instigate starting to kind of make a difference. And then, of course, we know that sleep isn't linear, so they can make some progress and then they go backwards, and then they make a bit more progress, and then a cold hits and that pulls the rug from under all the progress they made. So yeah, it does feel a little bit more like the long game, basically.
Yeah.
That's the biggest difference.
Yeah. I've always thought it's kind of more complex. The relational aspects of it are much more complex, and I think it cuts to like aspects of mental health in a different way, I think, compared with feeding, doesn't it?
Massively. And I think that was an important part of the course as well, is realizing all those sort of underlying elements. And even a sleep consultation I did last week, the family very much were talking about the impact it was having on their relationship. And so then you're looking at that family as a whole. It's never just looking at that baby and going, what's going on with the baby? It's going, how is this impacting? And is the impact that's happening actually kind of worsening things as well? That we need to somehow try and find this equilibrium so that we kind of calm everything so that they can move forward. So yeah, it's complex, and you feel like you're playing detective sometimes because if you don't ask the right questions, and I guess that is something that is similar with the feeding sport. If you don't ask the right questions, you don't necessarily get the information that you need to know what support to give. But I would say more so with the sleep, that if you don't look at everything around and just hone in on the baby, you're going to miss something really, really important that could be the absolute game changer.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it is more complex, that there are more puzzles and more kind of unraveling, but in a way, yeah, that's kind of what makes it cool. And I think also because you're on a longer journey with them with sleep. So it's kind of, I feel like it's harder work, but it's almost more rewarding because of that, because you have kind of gone from the trenches with them through to the other side, and they've found some sleep sustainability, and they've done it in a way that doesn't compromise their parenting or feeding goals. And yeah. It's lovely, and it's very, very complimentary, isn't it?
But that part of that process, I suppose, is what makes being a new to doing it more nerve-wracking, because you're kind of going, oh, we're a week in, we're 2 weeks in, and not much has changed. But then coming into the coaching calls and being able to say, right, this is kind of the background, this is what we've implemented. Am I missing something? Is there anything anyone else would recommend here? And that then kind of keeps my confidence up to go back to the family and carry on where we were and kind of keep moving forwards with them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think particularly for you, when you're coming from that clinical background, you know how important supervision is, and just checking in, and just sometimes that sense check that, oh, I've done this, this, and this. Does that sound sensible? And most of the time the answer is, keep the faith. Remember to come back in 2 weeks and let us know that it all worked out beautifully, because it does. But yeah, supervision is hugely, hugely important, isn't it?
Yeah, massively.
So just to wrap up then, what would you say to somebody who is thinking about joining the program, but perhaps they're not sure if it's right for them?
I don't think you'd have regrets. I honestly feel that it's been huge value for money. It's been a hugely rewarding learning journey as well. The other bonuses, we have continued access to all of the course information for life, so we can dip in anytime. I think you add CPD sessions as well, so I've just noticed this morning there's a couple I can catch up on, and that's lovely as well. So if any new information comes to light through more research, then that will be added in, and we get access to that as well. So, and obviously the continued access to those coaching calls with both yourself and Emma, so that at any point, if we're thinking of taking our business in a different direction, we can still kind of tap in and go, oh, what was working for me isn't now. What could I do differently? How can I change things? And then obviously the coaching from the practical side of, or I've had a really complex case, just need to mull that over. So there's all of that, that it just is kind of the gift that keeps giving, but there's lots all the time that I've got access to. And so, yeah, I just think that if you can see it fitting into your life and working, don't hesitate, jump in, do it. The study, yes, there's a lot to study, but you can chip away at it at your own time. And once you get set up and running, you can make it work how you want to. And that's the most valuable thing ever, that we're all working in slightly different ways, but all of us are making it work how best suits us.
Amazing. Well, we are very proud of you. Thank you for all the work you're doing with families. If somebody wants to reach out to you, either because they want to pick your brains about the holistic sleep coaching program, or if they want to work with you because they're like, oh, finally, somebody who's going to be able to help me and my baby and or my child with our sleep challenge, how can they best get hold of you?
So I am simply Liz Farrant, IBCLC, on my website and all my social handles as well. So yeah, just popping that in, and I can either message through the social media channels or drop an email, and I'd happily chat with anyone that's thinking about doing the course, or yeah, any families that are there looking for the support as well.
Thank you so much, Liz. It's been really lovely talking to you. And thank you everybody for watching as well.